This is the Sensei Podcast, where we help you make sense of investments and financial markets, where we help you make sensible financial choices. I am your host, Ndwati Karanja. How do people win in a competition? Especially a competition where you have a lot of highly skilled people who are interacting with each other. If you think about it, it is by exploiting the mistakes of your opponent. Your opponent makes a mistake and you're ready to take advantage of that, and you end up winning. In one way, investing is like that. There are a lot of very smart people who are waiting to take advantage of the mistakes that other people are making and make money out of those mistakes. If you want to consistently making money as an investor, it is very important for you to make sure that you avoid making major mistakes that are going to cost you a huge percentage of your capital. And that is the purpose of this episode. We're going to talk about how you are going to go about avoiding making mistakes in three major areas of investing. Let us start with the first of these. The first mistake that we make when investing is by taking bad advice. And this bad advice doesn't come to you most of the time intentionally. And the reason that people who are selling you investment might give you bad advice is because they have goals that are in conflict to yours. Let me use the example of someone selling you pieces of land through a radio show. That person's goals are to earn money from those people who are promoting those pieces of land. And therefore, your goals and the goals of that person are not going to be aligned. It's the same with other people who are selling you investment products. They might not be going out of their way to deceive you. However, your goals and their goals in that situation are very different. Therefore, to avoid this mistake, do not be blinded by the aura that experts or that celebrities have when they are talking about certain types of financial products or certain types of investments. Make sure that you do your own due diligence before buying into any kind of investment. In journalism, they say that you need to verify everything that you hear. For example, if your mother tells you that your birthday is on the 20th of May, if you're a good journalist, you're going to verify that by checking your birth certificate. Make sure that you use that same kind of mindset when you are approaching investments. Interrogate every claim that the other person is making, especially claims that relate to the kind of returns you are going to be making. If they are promising you high returns, make sure that you interrogate that as much as possible. Be as clear as possible about where those returns are going to be coming from. And if you take all the advice that you receive with a grain of salt, being ready to verify those claims, you'll find that you are going to avoid a lot of mistakes when investing. The second way that we make mistakes when investing is by making big bets. We get carried away by tales of people making huge bets in investments and they end up paying off. Let me give you an example. Years ago, there was a billionaire who owned part of a mobile phone services provider, and the huge bet that he made was by buying all the shares of the other person who he owned the company with, and then selling those shares in a matter of minutes, and he ended up making billions from that deal. When we hear stories like those, we are enthralled by them and we want to become a legendary investor like that. That is often the kind of image that we have in our minds when we think about an outstanding investor. However, in reality, a legendary investor is a very cautious person. This is a person who, when they make a bet in investing, they hedge that bet. Let me go back to that example of the billionaire. It might seem that he took a huge risk by making that move. However, you forget that he had many other investments that even if he was to lose all the money that he put into that deal, he would still not be too badly off. In addition to that, even if he didn't find a buyer immediately after buying those shares from that other person, he still would have had that company, and the company would still have make money, and he could have sold that company sometime in the future. Therefore, in truth, even though he made a big bet, it was not a risky bet in that investment. You also need to be very cautious whenever you are investing in something. Do not expose yourself to unnecessary risk. Whenever possible, make sure that you are diversified in your investments. And also, when you are taking a risk, make sure that you have thought about how you're going to cover any kind of losses that you are going to make. So remember, to avoid this mistake of making big bets, there is always a chance of you losing, and therefore you need to think through what you're going to do in case things do not go according to plan. And if you have a plan of dealing with losses, then you're not going to lose a lot of money in that situation. The final mistake that we often make in investing is by being ruled by our emotions. Emotional extremes will lose you money. Think about it. Normally, the way you make money through an investment is by buying when the price is low and then selling when the price is high. It seems pretty straightforward. However, in reality, what people usually do is the opposite of that. They buy when the price is high and then they sell when the price is low. Why do they do this? The reason they do this is because of greed and fear. When you see other people making money, you get a bit greedy, then you buy into that investment. The problem of doing that, following the crowd, is that by the time you're getting into it, the prices are already quite high. And then fear comes into play. When the price of an investment is fluctuating, you become afraid. And then because of fear, you end up selling that investment when it is low. So you see how that works. You become greedy, you buy it when it is too expensive, you're afraid, and you sell it when it is very cheap. Therefore, in investments, greed and fear are your enemy. The way to deal with this is by creating for yourself an investment program. People in the military are always facing unpredictable situations. They're always facing very difficult situations. However, the way they prepare for those unpredictable and difficult situations is by creating routines. Whenever someone has very strong routines, we usually compare them to the military, and that is how you're going to avoid becoming emotional when investing. Have a plan for regularly investing. Every month, decide that you're going to set aside a certain amount of money and you're going to invest it in a particular way. And then stick with that plan through the hard times and the good times. Remove as much emotions out of the process as possible and just focus on the plan that you have. And you'll find that when you take control of your emotions using an investment program that you've created for yourself, you are likely to avoid a lot of mistakes that people make. So let's conclude. Your first priority in investments is avoid mistakes that are going to lead you to major losses. And the way that you do this is by taking all the advice that you receive with a grain of salt. Do not trust anybody at face value. Do your own due diligence before buying in. The next thing is resist the urge of making big bets. And if you must do this, make sure that you are ready for when things do not go according to plan and you have put in measures to make sure that your losses are not very great. And finally, avoid being carried away by your emotions, your greed, and your fear. And the way you do this is by having an investment program and then sticking to it. Other investors are going to make money from your mistakes. And so you need to deny them these opportunities of making money by having these three major things in mind whenever you are investing. This has been the Sensei Podcast. We release new episodes on Wednesdays and Fridays. Please subscribe and leave a comment on your favorite podcast provider. I am Ndwati Karanja. Until next time.